Hello and welcome. Today, we delve into one of history's most astounding phenomena, the Mongol Empire. In just a few generations, a nomadic people from the steppes of Central Asia forged the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever seen. How did they achieve this, and what led to its eventual fragmentation? Let's explore the epic saga of the rise and fall of the Mongols. Our story begins with a man named Temujin, born around 1162, into a fractured landscape of competing Mongol and Tatar tribes. His early life was one of brutal hardship. His father was poisoned, his family was abandoned, and he was even enslaved. Yet these trials forged a leader of unparalleled charisma, military genius, and ruthless determination. Through a series of strategic alliances and brilliant military campaigns, Temujin unified the disparate tribes of the Mongolian plateau. In 1206, a great council, or Kurultai, proclaimed him Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. This wasn't just a new title. It was the birth of a nation and an empire. Genghis Khan's genius lay not just in conquest, but in organization. He broke down old tribal loyalties, reorganizing his people into a decimal-based military system called the Tummen. Units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 were bound by unwavering loyalty to him, not to their old clans. This created a disciplined, meritocratic, and incredibly mobile fighting force. The Mongol army was a marvel of its time. Every man was a skilled horseman and archer. They utilized compound bows that could outrange their enemies and employed sophisticated tactics like feigned retreats, encirclements, and psychological warfare. They were masters of siegecraft, often co-opting engineers from the lands they conquered to overcome fortified cities. The initial expansion was explosive. The Mongols first turned south, overwhelming the Western Xia and Jurchen Jin dynasties in northern China. Then, they swept west. The catalyst was the provocation by the Khwarezmian Empire, which foolishly executed Mongol envoys. Genghis Khan's response was cataclysmic. From 1219 to 1221, Mongol armies poured into Central Asia, annihilating cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Urgench. This campaign was not just a conquest. It was a punitive expedition that left a legacy of terror, but also showcased the Mongols' strategic reach and logistical prowess. They moved faster, coordinated better, and fought harder than any opponent they faced. When Genghis Khan died in 1227, the empire did not crumble. He had established a clear line of succession, and his son Gedai was elected as the next great Khan. Under Gedai, the expansion continued with even greater ferocity. The remaining Jin territories were conquered, and Mongol armies pushed deep into Russia, led by the brilliant general Subutai and Genghis's grandson, Batu. The Kiev and Rus states were shattered, and cities like Kiev and Moscow were razed. The Golden Horde, as this western wing of the empire became known, would dominate the Russian steppes for centuries. Simultaneously, other Mongol forces pushed into Persia and prepared for an invasion of Europe. In 1241, at the battles of Legnica and Mohi, Mongol armies annihilated Polish, German, and Hungarian forces, demonstrating a tactical superiority that stunned Christendom. Europe seemed on the brink of conquest, but then fate intervened. In December 1241, Gedai Khan died in Mongolia. According to Mongol tradition, all royal princes had to return to the capital, Karakorum, to elect a new leader. Bata and Sabutai turned back, and the full-scale invasion of Europe never resumed. This highlights a key aspect of the Mongol system, its reliance on a central authority. While this provided unity, the long succession crisis that often followed a Khan's death created periods of paralysis and internal conflict. Despite their reputation for brutality, the Mongols were also pragmatic administrators. They established the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol peace, a period of stability across their vast domain. Genghis Khan himself instituted the Yasa, a secret code of law that governed everything from property rights to military discipline. they established the Yang, an incredibly efficient postal relay system with stations stocked with fresh horses and supplies, allowing messengers and merchants to travel across Asia with unprecedented speed and safety. This reopened and secured the Silk Road, fostering a massive exchange of goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures between East and West. Gunpowder, the compass, and printing technology moved westward, while scientific knowledge, art, and medicine from the Islamic world and Europe flowed east. The Mongols were largely tolerant of different religions, often exempting clergy from taxes to win the loyalty of their diverse subjects. After Gedai, the empire's unity began to show cracks. The succession struggles became more intense. Mongol Khan's reign saw renewed expansion, with his brother Hulagu leading a campaign into the Middle East. In 1258, Hulag's army sacked Baghdad, the heart of the Islamic world, ending the Abbasid Caliphate. This event sent shockwaves across the Muslim world. However, Hulag's advance was finally checked in 1260 at the Battle of Ain Jalut in modern-day Israel, where a Mamluk army from Egypt dealt the Mongols their first major decisive defeat. This battle shattered the myth of Mongol invincibility and marked the high-water mark of their westward expansion. The death of Mongol Khan in 1259 triggered the final breakdown. A civil war erupted between his two brothers, Kublai and Arik Boke, for the title of Great Khan. Kublai eventually won, but his victory came at a cost. The empire was too vast and the rivalries too deep to be governed by one man from one center. By the 1260s, the Mongol Empire had fractured into 4 successor states, or khanates. In the east, Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty in China, moving his capital to what is now Beijing. He adopted Chinese customs and administrative methods, but his rule was marked by ethnic segregation. His attempts to conquer Japan and Java ended in costly failures, tarnishing his military prestige. In Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate held sway. In Persia, Hulag's descendants founded the Ilkhanate, which eventually converted to Islam and assimilated into Persian culture. And on the Russian steppes, Beta's Golden Horde continued its rule. Although theoretically acknowledging the supremacy of the Great Khan, these 4 khanates were effectively independent and often at war with one another. The decline of these khanates was as varied as their creation. The Yuan dynasty in China was overthrown by the native Ming dynasty in 1368, after just over a century of rule, plagued by internal rebellions and natural disasters. The Ilkhanate in Persia disintegrated into smaller states in the mid-14th century due to internal power struggles. The Chagatai Khanate split and was eventually absorbed by the rising power of Timur, also known as Tamerlane, a Turco-Mongol conqueror who built his own ephemeral empire on its foundations. Only the Golden Horde lingered, its power gradually waning until its final collapse at the hands of a rising Moscow in the late 15th century. So why did this seemingly unstoppable empire fall? There was no single reason. The sheer size of the empire made it impossible to govern effectively from a single center. The traditional nomadic system of succession, based on election rather than primogeniture, led to constant, destabilizing civil wars. Perhaps most importantly, the Mongols were a relatively small population, ruling over vast numbers of conquered peoples. Over time, they assimilated into the cultures they had conquered. The Ilkhans became Persian, the Yuan Khans became Sinicized, and the Golden Horde adopted Turkic languages and Islam. They lost the distinct nomadic identity and unity that had been the source of their initial strength. The legacy of the Mongol Empire is complex and controversial. For many, its name is synonymous with barbaric destruction. But it also created a unique moment in world history, a bridge between civilizations. The Pax Mongolica revitalized transcontinental trade and sparked an unprecedented exchange of knowledge that reshaped the world, arguably even helping to set the stage for the European Renaissance. The rise and fall of the Mongol Empire remains a powerful testament to the forces of unification, the challenges of governance, and the inevitable currents of cultural change. It shows how a charismatic leader and a disciplined people can redraw the map of the world, but also how even the greatest empires are ultimately subject to the tides of history. Thank you for joining this deep dive into the Mongol Empire. If you found this analysis insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.